Sit back, relax, and let's have a chapter chat. I'm your host, Jessica Foster, and joining me today is author Marian Yee, and she has her debut novel, Four Janes, out now. And Marian, congratulations on your debut novel.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled that it's coming out. It's been a long journey.
I'm sure it has been a long journey. You are not new to writing in any way, shape, or form, though.
I've written a lot. This is my first published novel. So very excited about that and just can't wait to have it out there and get responses back from readers.
And so, for readers who haven't read Four Janes yet, let's give them a little synopsis.
So For Janes is based on Jane Eyre. So that doesn't mean you have to have read Jane Eyre to enjoy For Janes. If you have read Jane Eyre, which I tell all my readers, just go and read Jane Eyre and be done with it. But if you wanted to read For Janes as well, it's about asking what if questions. What if Jane Eyre had made different choices and gone in different directions? What would her story be? So I just kind of split that up into four Janes, going off in four different directions, having four different stories, four different adventures. And, as I said, you don't need to have read Jane Eyre to understand or enjoy the book. It would then be, if you did know Jane Eyre, it would kind of be like, oh, this is where the story went off in a different direction, and I wonder what happens next. But if you haven't read Jane Eyre, it'd be like, here are these four different characters going off in four different directions, but they're also kind of connected to each other and to Jane. But they inhabit different times, different places, sometimes even different races and genders. So, but they are kind of connected to each other, and they're in search of something. They're missing something, or they feel incomplete, or they want something, and so they have these adventures.
And what was so interesting to me was just the different perspectives, and I loved those what if questions.
I did too. Don't you always wonder what one of your favorite characters in a book, what if they had just done something different or married the other guy? So in one of my Janes, she marries the other guy. And when that happens, it's like her life goes off in a whole different path. And I've always been interested in that. And I feel like people who love the books that they love, they sometimes wonder that, or sometimes they think, I wish that character had not hooked up with that other character. I feel like a different relationship would have been better. Another word for this is like fan fiction.
Yes.
So I kind of call what I'm doing kind of literary fan fiction, and it's totally what popular fan fiction is as well. It's not maybe a popular TV show or a popular story, but it is the idea of taking an original source material and kind of making it your own. Kind of like you don't want the story to end, or maybe you wish it had gone in a different direction, or the love interest had worked out in a different way, and just taking ownership of that and playing with that. But fan fiction has always been around forever. So something like Hamlet, for example, that was based on another original source. So it's always been around. I think because people just love what they love reading, and they just want to keep going with the story, give a backstory to a character, or another character who is never gets much of a voice. What's going on in their mind? What does the story look like from their point of view?
Well, what's also really great about that is that it can sometimes introduce a whole new generation to a classic.
Oh, yeah. One of the things I really hope readers take away from this is I want them to finish reading it and say, I want to read Jane Eyre now, if they've never read Jane Eyre. Or maybe go back to Jane Eyre and think about it differently now that maybe they've seen it through some different perspectives. Uh, Jane Eyre is a wonderful book. There's such a big Jane Eyre fandom out there already, so I'm excited to get readers from there, but also new readers who have never read Jane Eyre. I read somewhere that Jane Eyre was recently voted the best book to read on a rainy day, because if you want to get really cozy with a book, pick up Jane Eyre, because it starts off on a rainy day. You kind of follow her through her childhood, which was a difficult childhood. She was a orphan, and she was packed off to this boarding school, and she really has to like just survive that. And she finds love, but she has to suffer first, and she has to strive before she can succeed. So it really, I agree. It's a great book to pick up on a rainy day, but really any day. Just pick it up, just read it.
Well, I do feel like that book was ahead of its time with some of the themes that were represented and even the feminism in that book.
Definitely. Oh yeah, yeah. I agree totally. She's so she's so iconic in that way. She was maybe kind of a feminist before that became a subject of study, or an issue in that way in literature. And I think it's because she wins on her own terms. It's a love story about an unequal relationship. Socially, she's poor, and she's plain, which is also very interesting, because usually when we have heroines, they're beautiful and distressed because they're poor or in some situation where they're helpless. And Jane she's poor, but she's also plain. She's not beautiful. She describes herself as small, poor, and plain. And then she gets this job tutoring in this remote, English mansion. She meets the master of the house, and he's eccentric and he's rich, and they do fall in love, I think, because he sees her. He sees beyond her looks, her plainness. He sees her intelligence, her wits, and her strength, and he loves her for that. That's great. And he wants to marry her. And I'm not going to ruin the story about why there's a conflict concerning that for people who haven't read Jane Eyre. But for Jane, she loves Edward Rochester, but it's an unequal marriage. She's always felt that way. And in the end, she has to, she doesn't marry him, at least not right away. She has to go off. But in the interim, she becomes his equal. I think that's very important. When they finally do meet, he's kind of come down, she's kind of come up, and they meet on equal terms. They meet on her terms. She never really wanted to marry in the first place under those conditions, and especially when she learns his secret, which I'm not going to tell if you haven't read Jane Eyre. But it's that equality, and the sense that the love is based on the kind of intellectual equality, and not on her looks, not on her money. So definitely, she's an iconic feminist in that way, for sure.
Yeah, it was so progressive for the time. And I think that's why it transcends time also.
Oh, it's timeless, and exactly for that reason that you pointed out. You can read it at any time, just kind of recognize in her just her strength, her just kind of her standing up for herself. It would have been so easy to just kind of go along with this rich guy who's really kind of sweeping her off her feet, and she has to rely on her moral strength. That's all she has, but she has it in great capacity. She has to rely on that. She has to kind of go off on her own, and succeed on her own, and then choose to come back on her own terms. So finally, it's a wonderful story, and you're right, it just transcends time.
And your book, For Janes, was inspired by a trip to Vietnam. So, talk to us a little bit about that inspiration.
Oh, okay, thanks for asking, because it's such a fun story to tell. Um, I was my husband and I were traveling in Vietnam in the 90s. We were traveling all over, and um, we were on our way to Hue, uh, and on the way we were like on this kind of boat expedition. And we met this guy. He was an American vet, and he had just come from Hue. Um, and he, we were talking, and he was saying, if you guys are going to Hue, do you think you can do me a favor? I met this woman there who, like, she helped me to reach a village where I was stationed when I was a vet. And I'm afraid she may have been given a fine for helping me. So if you guys are going there, what you give her this envelope. It has a thank you note, has some cash, and if you could just find her. And we're young, we're dumb. I said, yeah, we'll do it. Where is she? And he's like, oh, you can just find her. She's on the street. She has a bike rental place down an alley next to a vegetarian restaurant. It's not really an address, but we said, oh, okay, we'll do it. So we get to where we thought this was going to be this tiny little village. We'll find her right away. It was a huge city, big boulevard. There are like shops all along the streets. And we had this envelope, and we promised him we'd give it to her, but it just seemed impossible to find her. But we decided that we would start at one end of this long boulevard, just work our way to the end. We'd just ask everybody for this woman, Madam T. And along the way, we were at this one like little bookseller shack, and a very nice woman was talking to us. All of a sudden, I felt like I was gonna faint. I was like dehydrated. Was like really kind of starting to pass out, and she really helped. She helped me. She helped us. She helped us get a pedicab back to the hotel. But what we had noticed when we stopped at her shop was that she was a bookseller, and she's like reading all these. She had all these like books and stuff, and she herself was reading this abridged copy of Jane Eyre to make her to get her English better. And she was talking to us, and we were having this really nice conversation when this happened. And afterwards, I was just so struck by this unlikely image of this young Vietnamese woman reading Jane Eyre. In that setting, it just seemed like unexpected thing to find, and that just kind of sparked an idea that I just wanted to work with. This I became curious about her as a person, her story. Why was she reading this? And I wanted to bring these two stories together somehow, Jane Eyre's story and her story, because the more I thought about it, I thought, I do see the connections. I see she has this desire. She wants a bigger life. She has these dreams, and so does Jane. And it's like, how could I connect these stories? And so I started thinking of, well, if I were to connect the story, I would have to get Jane Eyre out of England. I was going to somehow have to get this Vietnamese bookseller out of Vietnam, heading towards the West. I thought of this in kind of a geographical ways at first. And that kind of opened up the book for me. I thought, well, Jane Eyre could leave England, but the way she would have to do it is that she would have to marry St. John Rivers, who did propose to her. He wanted to be a missionary and to marry her so that she would go east with him and be his wife. And I thought, well, that is exactly how Jane is going to get out of England.
Right.
If she marries him, she's going to be a missionary's wife, and she's going to head east. The only problem was she couldn't get to Vietnam that way because as a missionary, English missionaries went to India. They all went to India. So she had to go to India. But I felt, okay, this is getting me towards Vietnam.
Yeah.
So later she gets to Burma. There's a hint that she'll get to Vietnam. I may not make it all the way, but she's heading that direction. And I had to get the other person in the other direction. I forgot to end the story about that envelope of money
I
we were
was
supposed to
about to
give.
ask, yes, what happened with that?
Our last day in Hue, we had to leave. We didn't find her. We were just walking. We passed this alleyway. There's a vegetarian restaurant there. There are vegetarian restaurants everywhere. This woman selling, renting bikes. So many people renting bikes. But we thought, okay, let's just ask her before we leave. And we asked her, are you Madam T? And she pulls out a business card. It says Madam T. So it's like, yeah, this is Madam T. And she knew the person we were talking about. She knew the whole story. So we gave her the envelope. She was so happy to have it. And she said, come back tomorrow. I have a letter I want you to give back to Marty. That was his name. And we went back the next day. She gave us an envelope to give to Marty. And when we got back to the States, I was able to mail it to Marty because I had his address. I didn't have to go through all of California to find him. So
Good.
that exchange happened.
That's amazing.
That was a fun trip.
Yeah. And then from all of that, 4 Janes, and what was the time difference from when you had this thought and this experience to now when this is published?
It's been long. I'd say like 8+ years. Just kind of slowly working through it. I'm a slow writer. I know other people probably write faster, but it just took me a long time.
But you've had that idea though for a long time.
Yeah. Yes, I did. I'll tell you why I'm such a slow writer. I do write almost every day, but I don't write for very long, which I feel bad about it. I feel like I should write longer, but I write about maybe half an hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
A day. And I know there are people who write several hours a day and produce many pages, but when you only write maybe half an hour a day, I feel like getting a paragraph out was a good day. That's maybe why it took 8+ years.
But everybody's journey is different. And that's what I love about talking with different authors, because everyone has a different process and there's no one right or wrong way to do it. And because it's an art form.
I'm fascinated by other people's processes. I have a friend who she'll go to a hotel. She'll check out for a weekend in a hotel and just like hunker down and like write. And I feel like I could never do that. I've gotten like fellowships where I was given that kind of time, like 2 weeks of do nothing but write. And I found that I couldn't do it. I could only stick to my original schedule. So, half an hour in the morning and then I was done. I think because of that, I don't really do those kinds of conferences anymore. It just doesn't work as well for me, for my own process.
Yeah, you have to find what works for you. As a journalist, I found that I work best under deadline.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Mm-hmm.
I do some of my best work when I don't have a lot of time to get it done and to just think about it. If I just put something down.
Yes.
I remember really being, under the wire to get this one piece done. And then it ended up winning a pretty prestigious award.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Right. I think it's the constraint. My theory is like, if you have the whole day, your brain will say, well, maybe this, maybe that, maybe that. But if you have like 5 minutes, I think your brain does that too, but it just compresses. It's really fast. It's like, I could do all that, but this is the best way.
Well, I have this funny childhood memory. I remember there was an essay contest, and our teacher wanted everyone to enter the essay contest. And I had a lot going on, and I was going from one practice to another practice. And so I wrote this essay in the car in between sports practices. And I just remember not thinking much about it, just getting something on paper. And then it won for our whole county. And that was the first moment I realized that I work well under deadline and that, hey,
Yes.
journalism just might work for me.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, it's that compression, right? You've got all that energy and you just like,
Yes.
I think that's perfect. But doesn't it stress you out?
I don't think it does, which is the weird thing.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It almost stresses me out more having unlimited time.
Oh, I totally identify with that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because then it's kind of like you have all this time. It has to be really good to justify all
Right.
that time.
Yes.
Mhm.
And then you second guess yourself and
Oh,
all that.
always.
Mm-hmm.
Always. Are you writing a book yourself?
So I actually have just recently started writing a book. It's been a lifelong dream of mine, but I'm so used to journalism and writing and just short sentences, subject, verb, object, based in fact, that, it's a challenge to write fiction where I'm making it all up. And so it gets me out of my
Yeah.
comfort zone. So I'm just
Right,
writing a little
right.
here and a little there and just trying my hand at it.
That'll get you there. But consistency and something you said about the scariness of the open-endedness. I guess that's why I like working against or with another source, like having Jane Eyre there, because then it's kind of like I'm a little constrained. I mean, there are some parameters that I have to work within. It isn't totally open. It's pretty open, but it's kind of like it's not totally open. So that helps me because otherwise it is kind of intimidating.
Ooh, that makes sense. And I guess that historical fiction genre would have that element too.
Yes, because there are historical facts you
Mhm.
have to work around, or even if you're departing from them, you have to give some kind of reason or justification for it. But that is kind of like a tax history, and you're kind of working within those constraints for sure. I had to do some of that as well,
Yes.
some of the history stuff, and it's it's not easy. It requires a lot of research. You just have to kind of know the subject. You have to research it, and then in the end, you have to like discard almost all of it, or your editor will discard almost all of it because nobody bought this to read as a history book, but you kind of needed it in there for knowledge, for background, for informing how a character might interact or what they would be up against.
And Marian, you're an
yes.
author, but you are also a scholar. So let's talk a little bit
I
about
guess
that.
I am. Oh, okay. Yes, I haven't had a lot of scholarly publications, but my most recent one was a scholarly article on Harry Potter. I'm just trying to find it in my bookcase. Um, Sorry, I didn't pull that out ahead of time, but it's part of an anthology on Harry Potter, and I wrote an article called Harry Potter and the Death of Magic, how magic died in Harry Potter. So that was fun to take something from popular culture and just kind of put it through this kind of critical lens.
Ooh, that is really interesting. Well, I am so excited to see what readers think of Four Janes because I enjoyed it. I think it's such a neat idea. It's different. And even though it's based on something that's already been published, it's such a unique take on it.
Thank you. I really enjoyed writing it for that reason too, just being able to go off in different directions. And I'm hoping that other people will enjoy that part of it as well. So thank you very much for your feedback.
Of course. And is there anything that you want to say to listeners out there?
Maybe something off of what we were just talking about in regard to writing. If you want to write and have maybe been held back because you feel like, how much time and uh, it could be anything that's kind of scary. I feel like it'd be helpful sometimes to just maybe either ask a what if question about a favorite text as a way to get started, or even you don't have to write for tons of hours every day, but a little bit every day for most days is a great way to get started. So I just want to encourage people um, who have stories they want to tell to just to do it. Don't be afraid to do it just a little bit every day, or to um, use something that you already love that you've read as a source of inspiration.
That is such wonderful advice. And we appreciate that advice and this whole discussion today. It really has been a joy.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. And For Jane's out now. You've been listening to Chapter Chat. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Happy reading.